So one of the big concepts of Education for Life that we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to, this weekend, talk about two of the biggest core concepts that take chapters of this book up. And one of them is Tools and Stages of Maturity. I think it's at least five chapters in the book. And the other tomorrow would be Motivating Children. How do we motivate people? Which is 3 chapters. And those are the things that I wanted to introduce to you this weekend to see, for you to see how you can incorporate these concepts in your home life and in your parenting, which, like Rachel said, I'm learning the vocabulary, but I think I was already doing Education for Life. Many of you are already doing most, if not all, of what we're going to talk about, but we'll give you a framework and a vocabulary maybe to hang some of that on. So, just for a second, let's look up here at this list and think about yourself. And which of these do you think describes you best, your mode of being, where you feel the most energy and joy? Is it moving? Is it feeling and connecting? Is it meeting challenges and influencing events? Or is it learning and understanding, expanding your mental understanding of things? There's, of course, no right or wrong answer. Is there any right or wrong flower in the world?
Could I ask the question again?
Yes.
What's the criterion?
Which one of these?
Do you feel the most comfortable in, or the most joyful in, or it describes you the best of what you like to do? Okay. Which would you choose? To move, to feel and connect, to meet challenges and influence events, or learn and understand, create greater learning and understanding? So you're not stuck to this, you're not wedded to this, we're not writing it down? Yes?
Do you want to?
No, I'm fine. There is tape on this. Okay. I didn't think I was going to be talking about it that long, but I guess I should tape it. So we're just going to have you do thumbs up, thumbs down. That way nobody else even has to see, everybody won't see what you're doing. So thumbs up if you think yours is moving, playing games, physical, basketball, tennis, yoga, hiking. Thumbs up if you think it's feeling and connecting. Thumbs up if you think it's meeting challenges and influencing events. What? All of us have all of them.
I know.
Absolutely.
They're all great.
I know. It makes us, this is the perfect human being who has these in all the balance, right? How about learning and understanding, increasing? Yeah. Okay, so some people voted more than once, and that's fine. It's hard to limit it. One thing that we say is that if you can't, when we're discussing a child and trying to understand a child, one of the things, the tenets I hold to is if you really just absolutely cannot decide, is probably will that child enjoys the most, because they've used their will to understand and learn. They use their will to play sports, to swim, to bike, and they use their will for the arts too. But it's interesting, I saw that now I learned something tonight. It's the first time I've had people stand up and share one thing. Usually I have people write down 3 or 4 things. And I should have said it can't have to do with your children. Because what I realized was, since so many of you talked about your children, naturally the tool of maturity that came out was what? Feeling. I have some body written down here, but almost all of these things you shared were feeling oriented. My grandchildren, the wildlife refuge, classical music, nestling after the beach. There's a little body in there too, but it was feeling. But there was one person who said one thing that was a little bit more about enjoying the intellect. Did anybody catch that? Any of you EFL teachers, were you watching and listening? Paul, it might have been. Explain, Lily. Why are you thinking that?
Well, the game of the challenge of winning. I think you were playing Monopoly, weren't you?
Yeah.
It's definitely a game where you use intellect.
And just being able to see what the daughters were doing. I'm not sure they told you in advance, but but with fun, intellect with fun.
Yes, and there was another one that was kind of similar actually. Anybody know who it was? Come on, you EFL teachers.
It's Friday night.
Oh, that's right. Let me just congratulate you all for even being here on Friday Okay, here's a big clue. It is one of the people who did a thumbs up for intellect. That's why I don't mind, outing her.
Which one was the intellect one? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
4,
Oh.
understanding and learning.
Oh, okay.
And it was you, Christina, because Christine, sorry.
Actually, Chris.
Chris? Chris, sorry. Why didn't you tell me that 6 months ago? Now I gotta relearn. I can do it. And she said, let me find her on here. Where is she? Okay, she was watching her kids dig for worms. Well, right there, that could be feeling, couldn't it? Or it could be body if she was enjoying finding the worms too. But she said, and watching the difference between them.
Yeah.
And I thought, oop, that was me. That's what I would have been doing. It was analyzing them and saying, oh, she does it this way. He does it this way. Now, that means he, what? We tend to have a lot of times a talkie. A lot of talk going on, too much talk.
I should have said without kids, because I did switch mine. I did have one that was completely without kids, but then I felt guilty.
You can have a life outside of your life with your kids. It's fine.
It's a parenting seminar.
I realized as soon as we got about, to this row, I thought, uh-oh, it's all going to be about kids because that's what you're here for. So I learned something there. But there's also, besides these 4 tools, which are body, feeling, will, and intellect, there's another aspect to it, which there are stages that in child development that the child moves through, where that's the primary one they're working on. So, from birth to 5 years, what might you guess would be the primary one?
Body.
It is. It's body. They're putting everything in their mouths, trying to experience. They're experiencing everything through the body, and they're just trying to learn to control their body and walk. And then a little older, they're trying to learn to skip and jump and test their limits and understand what hurts when they do that with their body. And that's the prime. And of course, all 4 of these exist in everybody all the time. But in those physical years, it's especially important to teach with the body, to use a lot of movement and using the body to teach. So when, is it Trina or Helen, I can't remember, they're always making up little games. So if they're doing shapes, they draw a triangle, a circle, a square, and they call out one and the kids have to run to that one. Or when she's teaching them to write a whole word, and they're learning their first word, they're going to spell a word like dog. She'll write dog and tape it way over there. And they have to get up from their seat and go over there and look at it without their paper and then remember it and go back and sit down and write it. So we all have our own places where we're comfortable. So in these years are the time that children are developing their sense of orderliness and neatness and physical comfort in the world. And some parents aid that more than others, depending on our own tool of maturity. So, tonight, I hope you'll go home and think about now, what tool of maturity was my father most comfortable in, and my mother, and how did they encourage me? Which tools of maturity did school encourage me in? I mean, most of us had educations. Well, I'll get back to that. So the next stage, the child becomes 6, and of course they've had feelings all the time. But at this age, they start to refine their feelings, and they start to be able to be inspired by high ideals. They have heroes and heroines that they worship, don't they? Don't they have stories and movies and things that they love and they imitate? Of course, we want to give them the very highest because they're going to imitate something. And we want to give them the story characters and people to imitate who are motivated by the highest. And what we're talking about here is not that they're developing emotions like anger and jealousy and hatred and fear. Those are emotions that are turbulent. But what we're talking about that we want to help children develop is calm, sensitive feeling, so that they can be receptive to being inspired, so that they can be compassionate toward others. That's really what my whole book, Calm and Compassionate Children, is mainly focused on, is helping children develop the feeling tool of maturity. And of course, we don't do that, or you don't do that just through giving feeling activities. With physical children, you got to give them ways that they're moving and doing this. And with intellectual children, concentration challenges and tasks and so on. So now, adolescence, puberty, what do you guess might be the one for this age? Mm-hmm. Up to this, some of you are probably familiar with Waldorf or Rudolf Steiner's system of education. And up to here, he said exactly the same thing. But then they talk about intellect next. And in Education for Life, developing will is next. It's the teenage years and a time where they need to do. You know, and schools are realizing this more and more, and they're focusing more on helping kids have internships and service projects and that sort of thing than it used to be. It used to be you went to junior high and high school, and that's when you buckled down and studied all day long and answered questions and developed the intellect. And yet it's a time where you want to do what? You want to express your will. Your ego's really being developed. And you want to say, who am I? How am I different? How am I different from you, Mom? I'm not going to do what you say. And if we don't give them positive channels to express their will, like saving the planet, like picking up the garbage, painting the, what was it? One time our kids helped paint around the drains. Do you remember that? I can't remember what that was about.
With the stencils for something about the fish or something.
Yeah, about don't pour poisons down the
Yeah.
drain, it goes to, and they loved that because they were getting to do something that, not supposed to play with the mind, right? That made a difference. And those are the years, you know, one mistake I think that some schools are making is starting to do that really, really young. So they talk to 8-year-olds about endangered species and collect money to help the pandas or the something somewhere. And it's really, you know, that's the time that you want to not present them with things that are really so harsh and difficult, because then they have to kind of steal their hearts. You know, it's like, you know, this is sad, but nobody seems sad about it. So, you know, save that for the teenage years when they don't want to show that kind of tender, receptive feeling anymore. They want to be cool, right? They want to be accepted by their peers. But they also want to express their will. And so giving them positive ways to do that. And then the one that education traditionally, at least in the West, has concentrated on. And right now, since I'm working at the college level of Education for Life, it's just been really interesting to me because, you know, you have kids that intellect is what they're focused on, or what brings them the greatest flow of energy. That's how I like to think of it. All through school. And you could see those kids, they love the word games, or they love the math challenges, or they love learning a new fact. They just like, oh, did you know? And they get really excited, and everybody else learns the same fact, and they're like, and they close the book. And the intellectual child goes, you know, they just bring so much energy into their being. But I hadn't worked with this age level as like a teacher before, and it was so interesting to see how all of them at that age, they ponder things a lot more. You know, it's traditionally, I mean, in the old days, in Europe, at this age, the colleges, they go to coffee houses and endlessly talk about philosophical topics and analyze everything. And I've also, even out at Laurelwood, been around some people more this age, and they'll ruminate things to death. But it's the time they need to do that. And you know, when the book was first published in 1986, there wasn't a whole lot of research that's come out more recently that shows the human brain is not fully developed until age 24. Do you know that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That the most recent research is showing that. Of course, the most change takes place right here, right? But then it continues all the way up through age 24, and they say that, you know, an 18, and you all know this, that an 18-year-old has no judgment because the brain's not finished. with its development. So, teachers, do you have anything to add to that? Or any thoughts about something I skipped? You know, we had a parent come here and she told me when her kids left, she said, you made such a difference in our lives. And I said, not me personally, but collectively, the Education for Life teachers. I said, well, how was that? And she said, well, when I came here, I thought I had to fix my child. Everything that wasn't right, I thought I had to fix her. And then after you all talked to me about her for a long time, I realized, oh, I could just see her strengths and accept her the way she was. Well, the mom was an intellectual person, and the child was a very body-oriented child. And she was so athletic, and she just loved to run and play. All kids love to run and play and skip. But she was just very talented in that area. And one time I saw her at the beach, actually, and she was leading her younger brother out there, and they were doing these big sandcastles, and the wind was blowing, and it was cold, and it was like, for me, it was misery to be out there on the beach. And when the mom said, it's time to go in, her face fell, because she has such physical vitality that to her, that was stimulating. And I can see her being, I don't know what she'll do as an adult, but there's so much she can do that wouldn't even be remotely possible for me. But yet, the mom thought, as she brought her here, she's not interested in sitting down and learning her ABCs. What's wrong? You know, nothing was wrong. She just had a different strength. So part of what we do as parents and teachers is just be in the heart and be calm and look at our children. Don't think, what do I want them to be? What do I expect from them? But who are they? What are their special gifts? What are their special interests? How does energy flow the strongest through them? I think a lot of us, it's certainly true of me as a teacher in my early years, we just talk too much to them, trying to teach them. What color is this? Well, you know, these are great things to do, but let's try to spend a little more time just being with them and watching their energy and seeing, where does it flow? And then can I give them more experiences where it flows? Is it through music? Wow, does this child come alive when there's music? Do they remember the songs? Well, then I need to offer more opportunities for them to learn music.
Where does music come in there?
Where would music come in? Who wants to guess? Great question. It could be
body.
I was thinking
It
body.
it could be in all four places, couldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you've got to master the body to do the instrument, whatever it is. It can be will to practice and mastery. You've got to have will. Intellect, you know, mathematicians are often great musicians because they get the relationship of the musical intervals. But I think the passion for music comes from a feeling tool, usually. The feeling person is often interested in the arts, often. Sometimes they're interested in socializing more. But pets, I'm going to give you some handouts.
The other side of when you have a child that has like a weak will or has a tool that's not very strong in them, I've noticed in my parenting to be real mindful of that and offer opportunities where they would be successful and it would strengthen that tool and it could develop.
Can you give an example of that, or am I putting you on the spot?
Putting me on the spot a little bit, but I have a child that doesn't have a strong willpower, and so when she was younger, you know, a task that had multiple, like setting the table. I remember the first time she had to set the table, it was meltdown, and it took a long time to, you know, get her to be able to do that task. I mean, probably several weeks. So it started with just putting out the napkins. Once I saw that it was really hard for her, and then putting out the napkins and the forks. Okay, now the napkins, the forks, and the plates, and really giving her opportunities where she was successful. And then she, even if she didn't want to do it, she had been successful enough that she could activate her will to finish that task. So
Perfect examples. So that brought up some examples in my mind. I remember a student, Karen had, who had trouble with the intellect. And there was a meltdown every time she gave him any math problems. And so she just took it she started giving him 2 math problems. And he succeeded. And then she gave him 3. And then she gave him 4. And just getting the energy flowing through that channel of intellect pretty soon, it took a while before she could give him a whole page. But just giving him an opportunity to be successful in a tool that wasn't his natural. How about a person whose natural tool isn't feeling? What could you do? Helen, what could you do?
Story reading.
Read stories.
That they can identify, or watch a movie or anything like that.
Yes. And also help them learn to identify other people's feelings. You know, how did he feel when blah, blah, blah? How does she feel? Another thing is the practice we have of birthday books. When it's someone's birthday and everybody has to say something positive about that person, this helps the people who don't really dwell in that center to start getting a vocabulary and an awareness of connecting with other people in a way. And of course, that's great, thank you.
Or being around animals, that bring it out?
Yes, yeah, all kids love animals. But you know, let me show you something here. I'll show you these pictures. Okay, so now if you show this in a junior high school or high school classroom, all the kids in the class will go, "Ah!" Feeling is their tool of maturity.
If you show it in a feeling years classroom, everybody will do it, even if feeling is not their tool, just because they're in that age range. But then when you're in the will years or the intellect, mostly you're going to get the response from the feeling people.
That brought to mind that, you know, that the girl I described that was so tuned into everybody and color and feeling. And one time I had taken, back when I had taken Karen's recycle box and emptied it and put it down in the office or something and didn't take it back for a couple of days. And then I said, oh, I've got to take the recycle box back. And I walked in the classroom with this box that just said recycle on it and put it down, and Miss Child said, oh, our recycle box. So a person like that could bring feeling into just anything. And what would the world be like without that? You know, we wouldn't have any art or stories or inspiration. So anyway, we've got 20 minutes. We're going to spend about so did everybody get that? Of course, Helen's was body, and the music and the colors and the pictures of the kittens and the baby animals was feeling. And the one where you're competing to do better than other people and make more words and build the blocks higher was will. And of course the puzzles and the crosswords and all those things were intellect. Oh, that's
That's your cell phone.
alarm clock. Really enjoy one above all the others. What did you enjoy, Angela, if you don't mind sharing?
I clearly enjoyed folding paper and coloring. I actually found myself kind of sweating it out and counting down the seconds when I was trying to do the Sudoku and the word problem ones. Like it was like I reverted right back to school and high school and being like, God, I just want to run out of the classroom. Me and numbers.
Now, did anybody else, thanks for sharing that so freely, have any anxiety in any of them? Which one was anxious for you, if you don't mind?
The word one. I mean, I would say that was my favorite, but only if I was the best.
That was very cleverly said. Just for the video, I want to say. She said the word one, I'd say it was my favorite, but only if I were the best. So did you like the one where you build blocks or
I did the word.
that.
See, I wouldn't have liked that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, in the will one, see, that's what we try to do is put something physical and then something intellectual, because the will can go in any direction. And that's why I say it's a lot harder usually to figure out what a person whose preferred tool of maturity is will, because they're so successful at whatever they do. You know, they can put that will toward anything.
Are you saying I'm willful?
No?
No, I'm not.
You know, will has a bad name in our society because it people, it has the connotation of being willful, using your will over others to control others. But will means self-mastery, using your will to accomplish the goals that you set out for yourself. And you know people who have strong wills and who accomplish their goals, and you know people who have great goals and never get there. And possibly it's because of a lack of development of will. One of the things that Education for Life parents and teachers try to do is to not break their child's will, to work with it. And to, you know, a person whose tool of maturity is his favorite one is will, they're the kind of kid that will cut off their nose to spite their face. So you say, you either do this or we're not going to the park tomorrow, and they'll go, I don't care, I don't want to go to the park. Because they'll do anything to triumph, to be in control of the events, won't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when I say preferred tool, it doesn't mean the thing that you're best in. It just means the one where the energy and the joy flow the most. And we all have all of them, and maybe you don't have a preferred one. Maybe you've got two. I bet you could pick out areas that you prefer though. And they may be the same or they may be different than your kids. And you need to look at that and say, am I providing opportunities for my child in both areas that they're strong and that they really love, and smaller pieces in the areas that are challenging? Ms. Rose, that was so great you pointed that out, so that they can be successful in that area. One of the fun things for me in trying to understand all this, and this is again where what you said reminded me of me, was one time in the early years, not long after the book was published, went on a field trip where we took the kids to the coast, California coast, to go tide pooling. And we'd been studying ocean life. And so we were just all out there experiencing the tide pool and wading through. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's just wonderful, the starfish and the anemones and everything that you can see. And this one little child kept telling me, and that starfish, it eats blah, 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 and it has blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And you know, we were all out there talking about the life, and then I looked up, and way out there, one of those big, huge rocks, like haystack rock kind of, a bunch of the kids and one of the chaperones were up on top of that. They climbed up that. They completely left the tide pool behind to act, to do. So those, and then I thought, oh, that's all the body and the will kids, isn't it? And then these other kids kept running up to me and saying, they were long left the tide pool, and they had hermit crabs in their hands. Look, 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 Susan, this is Sarah, and this is the mother, and this is the daddy, and this is the, and they were just doing this elaborate fantasy. And it was amazing to me. Those were the feeling kids who'd all named them, and were off doing a fantasy trip. And the body and the will kids were on top of the rock. And the intellectual kids were telling me all these things about how the tide pool worked, and we were all out there still in the tide pool. Just seeking to understand. So it's a great way, as I said, to understand yourself and others, the way you interact, and to bring forth the talents of your child and to appreciate them and help them develop equally. Because if you're overdeveloped in any of these areas, if you're overdeveloped in will and you don't have the feeling, you can become what we think of as like somebody who is abusive, for example, or who just is controlling. If you're overdeveloped in intellect without the body and the feeling, you can be a person who endlessly analyzes but never gets anything done that you want to do in life. So it is important to do all four. Tomorrow, we're going to have 4 teachers speak just a few minutes about each stage, a little bit more about how do you deal with kids in each age group. And then we'll go into the motivating children topic tomorrow too. And we'll have some more things that are fun. Questions? Thoughts?
I have a question about,
Lily?
you say that you have a child who is definitely a feeling child and happens to be then in the age of the feeling age.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Do you need to focus more on the problems and the challenges for that particular child because they have the feeling and they're also in the feeling age?
Well, it's best to always focus on strengths and talents, because what you focus on, you get more of. It's like bad behavior. You know, if you only respond to your child when they're doing the wrong thing, they're going to do the wrong thing more and more and more to get response, right? So what you want to put your focus, and it's also similar to, it's like positive psychology. You know, there's a whole field now of positive psychology. And there's research that actually proves, you know, if you focus on, if you do a gratitude journal, your happiness level actually goes up. There's research that proves that what you focus on, you get more of. So you always want to focus on the strengths, the talents. That doesn't mean you're not providing opportunities for them to take steps in the areas of problems and challenges. Dorothy has a comment on this.
Well, that just reminded me, I was just reading something today that was talking about one of current, I guess, treatment for depression is Botox injections, so people won't be able to frown, and when they can't frown, their depression level lifted. Boy, that's a funny way to approach it, but there it is, you know. Smiling can make a big difference.
Yogananda said, be a smile millionaire. He said, if his corners of your mouth won't go up, push them up. And also, for some of you who may be interested in this, what the basis for this, ancient basis, this does come from yoga. And those of you who know something about yoga, there are various types of yoga. Bhakti yoga is devotional, and that would be the feeling temperament person. Jnana yoga is intellectual. It's those who seek to understand reality. Who am I? What is real? And then the karma yoga people, the people who get their growth in that way, are either body or will. And of course, the hatha yoga is more body. So, alrighty. Well, we'll be coming back at 9:30 in the morning. With rings on our fingers and bells on our toes and more stories. And I'd like to give you tomorrow an assignment to. You've heard everybody talk about a moment of joy, and so you feel, I hope, some connection with someone you don't know very well. And tomorrow, be sure you talk for a few minutes to someone in the class that you don't know very well, so we can get to know each other better. All right? Thanks so much for coming. See you tomorrow. I know.
Okay.
Imani Rose is missing. I don't know if she was planning to come today. Lily? She couldn't come till 10. She'll be here at 10. Thank you. Chris couldn't come back. But there was someone who was supposed to come today and not last night, besides you, I think. Is that it? We're ready? Come, Rose. Oh, Angela. That's who it is. Sweet Angela, right there.
Usha, I'm getting too much interference from your scarf there.
Oh, on the mic. Just maybe flip it over. Here's the mic.
The other part.
Come.
Okay.
How many of you drink coffee?
Well, I drink coffee. I'm done for today.
No, I'm just seeing if everybody's awake and ready, awake and alert. So let's test our awake and alertness. Simon says, put your hands on your head. Simon says, put your hands on your shoulder, put your hands on your waist. Simon says, put your hands on your knees, put your hands on your waist, put your hands on your head. Simon didn't say to. Simon says, snap your fingers. Simon says, smile at your neighbors. And Simon says you can relax. And let's just close our eyes for a moment and visualize this beautiful day full of light, whether it's coming from the sun or if it's coming from our hearts and minds and coming through us, out our fingertips, blessing all whom we meet. Hearing and listening to each other and expanding our awareness And in turn, sharing that with our families, friends, children. Om, peace, amen. So on your chairs, you have a handout about the stages of development. And it's just the first 3 stages, because until recently, as I mentioned, I hadn't been working with the intellectual years, and I hadn't had people in my workshops from those years, so we haven't done this for that age yet. But here are the ages from birth through age 17, and some receptivities that developing souls have at these ages. And so this morning, we're going to have teachers talk about these different stages very briefly, and then we'll go into the topic of motivating children. So last night, I talked a little bit about the intellectual years and how these kids, young people, I never know what to call them because they can vote, most of them, but they seem like kids to me. That they like to ponder things and ruminate on things and discuss them, what feels to be endlessly, but it's that stage of development where that's what the developing being needs to do in order to develop that clear, practical intellect. Remember, when we talk about the tool of intellect, we're not talking about being necessarily clever, but we're talking, although that might be a part of it, but clear and practical intellect. Can you not only reason, problem solve, detect bias, all of those things, but also then take what you learn intellectually and then with calm feeling decide, is this the way to go or not? So a clear intellect and a practical intellect that can bring ideas and concepts and thoughts into practical being, into reality, make them real in life. So we're going to go backwards today, and I'm going to start with Rose, and she's going to talk a little bit about the will years. Please.
So since I'm just starting to teach that age group, my experience is practical as a parent, since I have one that's been in the will years and one that's coming into the will years. And it's naturally a time, like Usha talked about yesterday, that there's an awakening of strengthening the will and exploring with the will and testing the will. And what I've noticed is there's a lot of energy that comes with that will. And they're having body changes in adolescence as well. But that's what's amazed me the most about being in the will years is the amount of energy. And it comes out in different ways. And what I'm realizing and noticing is that it really needs to be guided so that it expresses itself in expansive ways and not contractive ways, because it's a tendency for teenagers to get very self-absorbed or get down or get negative. And a lot of the input they get is, helps support that. And so helping to notice when it's coming out and then guiding them. I thought of one story with, I have a daughter that's been who's a teenager, and this was maybe last summer, I think it was last summer, she wanted to go to Target and get a present for a friend who's gonna have a birthday party that evening. And I was in the middle of a project, it was warm weather, I think I was outside, and she just kept badgering me about it. I said, okay, the shop, I'll clean up and then we'll go. Well, next thing I know, it started getting into, well, I want to stay later at the party than you've allowed me to. And I said, no, this is what works for us, this is what we have agreed on. Well, it just started she started pushing that limit. And, she sounded like a lawyer. She's got a strong intellect and all the reasons why she should stay, how she's different from the rest, why I'm unfair, da-da-da-da. And luckily, I'd spent enough time outside that I was in a pretty center place, and I thought, this child's got a lot of energy. And I said, you know what? You really want to go to Target and buy this present for your friend for tonight? Instead of driving you, we're going to ride our bikes. And the look on her face was like, you've got to be kidding me. And it's only a couple of miles, but it was just far enough that since that's probably not her strongest tool is physical, it was really challenging for her. So we went up and down hills, and it was only a couple miles, but when we got there, she was definitely in a different state of mind. And we got the present, put it in the basket, came home. I didn't hear one more word about staying late at this party. And I thought, when they start to push up against you or push up against their neighbor or spiraling down, what need is not being met for that age? And on the other side of that, I've noticed, I have one that's just coming into the will years, and he was in an education environment where there was no place that was challenging him. I'm noticing that age really needs a place to be challenged, and often it comes in the tools that are most comfortable for them, but some kids, it kind of varies. Sometimes it's not just one tool, it's several tools. But in this environment, he wasn't challenged intellectually, he wasn't challenged physically, he wasn't connecting with anyone, and I watched his energy start really spiraling down, getting negative, not liking school, just retracting into himself. And so we changed the education environment, and his new education environment, it included an experience at a couple hours a week at Ananda's Laurelwood campus. And what I noticed after the first couple of weeks is that he would come out of there happier than I've ever seen my child. His energy was flowing, his eyes were bright, he had a lot of things to share. And I started thinking about it last night when I was thinking about this presentation, and I thought, you know what, he's being challenged. He's working side by side with young adults doing big projects. So he's learning about how the workings of these big projects. He's physically being pushed because he's having to, work alongside these guys. Feeling he's being challenged there because he's connecting with a large group of people, and you're finding his place in the world. And I thought, I wonder if that's why, he's flowing when he comes out of there. So it's really made me really appreciate adolescence and my adolescence, and probably a lot of yours, where we didn't have channels to really take our next step and be challenged. And now when I look at adolescents, I'm noticing in other areas that I'm working with them is give them a task, give them a responsibility, and they rise to the occasion. Give them community service, give them whatever their interest is, support that so that they can take the next level of ice skating, or the next level of backpacking, or the next level of whatever is their interest, writing, providing opportunities so that they can really rise to the occasion. So anyway, that's my experience.
Thank you.
Okay, I presume I'm next, if we're going backwards, because I'm going to talk real briefly about the feeling years. And it's very interesting for me because I never thought of myself as being a particularly feeling person. When I first was introduced to Education for Life, I knew my tool was intellect, or with, a strong component of will. And then through circumstances, I ended up teaching kindergarten, first and second grade here. And in the beginning, I remember it's like, oh man, And what I discovered as time went on is totally feeling here. Well, no, there are, I have those other tools as well, but feeling is really it. And I got to just love. In the beginning, first grade, I was just going, first graders, they're so needy, they always come up, and I just had that image of them coming up and wiping their nose on your pants, even though I've never had one do that, but right, it's like, but they always, it's like they couldn't do anything, you'd say, let's write now, and they'd be going, they do know something, but anyway, it was just that sort of thing. But that was my attitude about it, and as time went on, I came to just totally love working with them because partly they're just so fresh. You come in, they go, are you going to be our teacher? We love you. Or they're always coming up, you're the best teacher I ever had. And I'm thinking, for one thing, I know if they've had Trina and Helen, that's so not true, but I'm also going, a part of my mind is going, yeah, I'm the only teacher you've ever had. But they're just so wonderful at that age, and all through the feeling years. I just realized as time went on, this is my age group. But I just wanted to share with you a couple of things that I found to be really most useful. There's so many ways to work with kids in the feeling years, but one of the things that I've found most helpful through time is music. And it's great to have some wonderful CDs that you know where they are, you can find them when you need them and put them on. And whether it's calming music or whether everybody's coming in that day going, then you want something percifying. But I've used it most often where I really noticed a change, a major impact is, for instance, driving to a field trip. And we try to kind of figure out who should ride in the same car together, but sometimes you ended up with the group that you got, and you're kind of going, oh, they're in the back seat, you hear them going, and what has worked for me most often in that case is just, and I don't even engage them anymore by saying, do you want to sing a song? It's like, nope, I just start singing because I figure somebody at least is going to be happy then. And I want it to be me, and I want it to be them too. So just starting to sing a song, anything that they know or even that they don't know, but that will just change the energy so quickly because music is just vibration. There it is. That's what's happening with music. So that's, if you have children in the feeling years or for whom feeling is a tool, I feel like that's, my number one ace in the hole sort of thing. Another thing is to be in nature. That works so wonderfully with feeling aged kids. One thing I've done through the years often is, when possible, to go outdoors for lessons. And we used to, different groups of kids, you do different things with because that's what they draw from you. But with several groups through time, we needed a little bit more exercise too, so we'd walk over to the Schiffler. Is that the one? Over that way. Anyway, there's a play structure, there's a large grassy area, and then there's a large area that's just large round rocks. And we'd go over there and we'd take some schoolwork, we'd take some math sheets, maybe some writing a book, and we learned lots of things about being responsible for, having the materials we need and so forth. But part of what we do is when we got there is we take a certain amount of the time just to do whatever, and just being out there in nature, having some choices about whether you wanted to be in the grass, whether you wanted to be on the rocks, on the play structure. Oh, there were great bushes to play in too. But just being out there, you could just see how their hearts opened, and it made everything easier. We'd take some time, then we'd maybe play for 15 minutes, and then we'd sit down to do our math. And even for people for whom math was not a particular love, it just seemed to flow more easily that day. It's like, well, let's do this. Okay, when you're done with this, then you can, go sit on the rocks or roll in the grass or do whatever. So it just really helped open their hearts and help them move ahead with things that maybe were more challenging as well. And the third thing is escaping me at the moment. So I'm going to look because I wrote it down because I thought this might happen. This is the power of story to use with kids in the feeling years. It can actually is wonderful with all ages, but one of the people who I've been so amazed seeing this in practice, there's a primary age teacher down at Ananda Village. Her name's Narani Morehouse, and she's just a master at this. Kids will come in and maybe there's been some little thing on the playground, some unfair sort of thing. And she'll just sit down and she'll tell this wonderful story, maybe about bunnies or squirrels, and it's exactly what happened with the kids, but she doesn't say that, and they don't even consciously recognize that this is exactly what happened, but it'll just have some nice little outcome, and it will totally change the energy of the group. And here she just told this wonderful little story about, bunnies and squirrels. So those are the things that I've just seen. There's many, many ways to, like I said, and on your paper it has a list of many more things. And also in the Education for Life book, as Usha was saying, there's chapters about each of these levels and so forth, but those are a few of the areas that I found really, really useful in working with children in the feeling years.
Thank you, Karen. And just for our people who don't speak English as a first language who will be watching this video, percifying is a slang word that means activating. And Laurelwood is the campus for the Nanda College of Living Wisdom and a lot of Education for Life training. So I wanted to come up and introduce the next person because I realized you didn't meet her last night. So most of you probably know her. Maybe all of you know her, but not all of you. This is our preschool teacher who also is the parent of 3 children who came to our school, and that's how we first met Trina, not as a teacher, but as a parent. And her oldest is now a senior in high school, and she's going to talk about the foundation years, the body years.
I'm just going to put this here in case I need some talking points. But so I know there's not a lot of room in front of you, but I would still ask you to do this. Just kind of set everything down for a quick second, and if you can, and you don't have to if you've got knees, hips issues, but just down on your knees. And the age from birth to 5, they're called the foundation years, because if we can develop our senses, our physical, the coordination of our physical body, the integration of how our physical body is here on this physical plane during these foundation years, then we can elevate ourselves to being able to function in the world up on our feet at this level. If we skip this development, we would end up needing to operate in the world down at that level. And you can imagine how that would perhaps handicap you in how you were interacting. So what we focus on in preschool and in kindergarten really is helping to develop ourselves in these foundation years. And I mentioned, the physical part of it. So we have the large motor skills, and then we have the fine motor skills, and really we do tackle all of that during this time frame. And even if you have a child, and one of the things I notice now, as we keep progressing forward in this age, especially of technology and just high-paced interaction, many parents, it seems like, have moved to, if whatever their primary strength is, their primary tool that they operate in most efficiently, they tend to think that their kids would enjoy that the most as well. So they may miss out, if physical isn't it, they may miss out on helping their child to develop using some of the tools there. Or if their child wants to read books all the time, or wants to do another type of activity, maybe they're an intellect and they want to do another type of activity and that's where they get their joy, then it's your job as the parent or the teacher to find ways to incorporate that into physical activity so that they can develop these skills and not handicap themselves as they grow up in life. So we do lots of different things. One of the things that, this isn't a problem in our house because my husband he's physical. That's his number one, he loves living in that. So my kids always roughhouse with him and wrestled and developed all of that. And I was just telling Usha that I found a book about it, that someone has actually, in the last 2 years, written a book called The Art of Roughhousing. Now, why would that be? Why would someone need to write a book like that, do you think? Because maybe we've moved away from some of that as parents, that we maybe, Julie, you don't have to worry about this.
No, I know.
She's looking confused.
I
know. but there are, yes, Dimitri as well. So, but there are homes where it's too scary for parents to feel like the energy might get out of control. Like the parent, maybe if the parent is a strong will and they don't like the mess that gets created, that they want to limit that, or maybe they do have a fear about physical hurt or what have you. Maybe their child doesn't have enough physical exercise, so when they do get roughhousing, the house goes crazy. So the book talks about the idea that through roughhousing, through that wrestle play, through the coordinated games really as an adult that you're engaging your child in or letting them engage in with each other, that they're learning the laws of physics, you know? They're learning all about that if they get hurt, which they probably will. I mean, on the playground, Helen and I just had a discussion about this. The weather's getting beautiful outside, and do we let them go barefoot? We're like, yes, we wouldn't even think about it because they get to feel with their feet, the bottoms of their feet, all of the surfaces they're walking on. They were Amber, as a matter of fact. She said, oh, this is warm. It was dark concrete. And then she stepped over into the shade and she said, oh, this is really cold. And then she stepped onto the white concrete and she said, this is warmer, but it's not as warm as the dark. And I said, why? And she knew. She's like, because dark attracts the sunlight. And so the fact that she did that, then all the other preschoolers or kindergarten were following in her footsteps and giving them a chance to experience the world. In preschool, we definitely do things with, we notice smells, we develop our senses, colors. Once you have that foundation for all of those things, then you can move on and really begin developing in all of the other areas. So, did I miss anything? Okay. All right.
Did she?
Yes.
I know she didn't miss anything, but then Marty
But
said.
other things to talk about, yeah.
Well, no, you covered pretty well. I was just going to say, because it is the physical years, we do physical activities and have maybe more recess than everybody else.
That's right.
So just little things like that, yeah.
That's right. Oh, and spending that time outdoors, doing the physical recess, your the rods in your eyes need that blue light to fully develop. And you want to make sure, even if it's cold, we're still going outside, and we'll be outside for that time. So we always bundle up the kids and make sure they have, what they need to be able to do that. So anyway.
Thank you, Trina.
Yes.
So, now you know the tools of maturity and the stages of maturity.